Caitlin Clark just pulled off something that's got the whole WNBA buzzing. She came back from her Olympic break not just refreshed, but better than ever. Coach Christie Sides couldn't believe her eyes. What Clark did in that time off is gonna make you rethink everything you know about athlete development. You might be wondering, what's the big deal? Here's the thing, Clark didn't just show up ready to play, she came back with a vengeance. Coach Sides was stunned, saying Clark was hitting shots and had her legs under her. That's not just good news for the Fever, it's a game changer for the entire league. But wait, there's more. Clark's comeback isn't just about physical improvement, it's a story of grit, determination, and proving the doubters wrong. Stick around because we're about to dive into how one rookie transformed herself and might just transform the WNBA in the process. You won't believe what's coming next. Let's rewind to the start of Caitlin Clark's WNBA journey. Picture this, a highly touted rookie, fresh off a stellar college career, stepping onto the pro court for the first time. The expectations, sky high. The reality, a bit of a bumpy ride. Clark's early days with the Indiana Fever weren't exactly smooth sailing. She was putting up decent numbers, averaging 16.8 points, 6.3 assists, and 5.3 rebounds per game. Not bad, right? But here's the kicker. She was also coughing up the ball 5.6 times a game. That's a lot of turnovers, folks. And it wasn't just about the turnovers. Clark found herself in a shooting slump that had fans and critics alike scratching their heads. Where was the sharpshooting phenom they'd seen light up college courts? The transition from college to the pros hit Clark like a freight train. You might be thinking, what's the big deal? Lots of rookies struggle. True, but this is Caitlin Clark we're talking about. The same Caitlin Clark who dominated college basketball and had everyone buzzing about her WNBA potential. So when she stumbled out of the gate, it raised some eyebrows. But hold onto your hats because July rolled around and suddenly it was like someone flipped a switch. Clark didn't just improve, she exploded onto the scene. We're talking about a transformation so dramatic that some folks were saying she had the best month of any player in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, you heard that right. Better than established stars, better than seasoned vets. Clark was on fire. So what changed? How did Clark go from turnover machine to potential top-tier player in just a matter of weeks? It all comes down to adapting to the WNBA's lightning-fast pace and physicality. The pro game is a whole different animal, and Clark had to learn that the hard way. In college, Clark could take her time, survey the court, and make decisions at her own pace. But in the WNBA, you blink and you've got a defender in your face. Clark's early games were a testament to this adjustment period. Remember her WNBA debut? 10 turnovers. Ouch. It was clear she was trying to play her college game in a pro league, and it just wasn't cutting it. But here's where Clark's story gets interesting. Instead of crumbling under the pressure, she used it as fuel. She studied the game, worked on her decision making, and started to understand the rhythm of professional basketball. The result? A more aggressive, quicker thinking Clark who could hang with the best of them. And let's not forget about the defensive end. In college, Clark could sometimes coast on defense, saving her energy for offensive fireworks. But in the WNBA, that's a recipe for disaster. She had to learn to be a two-way player and fast. All these challenges could have broken a lesser player, but not Clark. Instead, they lit a fire under her. Remember that quote to Coach Sides? Hey coach, they woke a monster. That's not just talk, that's the mindset of someone who's been pushed to their limits and come out stronger on the other side. Just when you thought Caitlin Clark's journey couldn't get any more intense, life threw her a curveball that would make even the toughest athletes question themselves. Picture this, you're on top of the world, dominating college basketball, and everyone's talking about your WNBA potential. Then, boom, you don't make the cut for the US Olympic women's basketball team. That's exactly what happened to Clark. Can you imagine the gut punch? 1 minute, you're dreaming of Olympic gold, and the next, you're watching from the sidelines. It's the kind of setback that could break a player's spirit, but Clark, she's built different. Now, you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Lots of great players don't make the Olympic team. True, but this is Caitlin Clark we're talking about. The same Clark who had been lighting up scoreboards and making headlines. So when she didn't make the cut, it raised some eyebrows and probably stirred up some doubts. Let's be real for a second. Clark must have felt a mix of disappointment, frustration, and maybe even a little anger. It's only human, but here's where Clark showed she's not just any player. Instead of letting this setback crush her dreams, she used it as rocket fuel for her comeback. You know what they say about pressure creating diamonds? Well, Clark took that Olympic-sized pressure and turned it into a performance that's got the whole WNBA talking. But how did she do it? First off, Clark didn't sulk or complain. Nope, she took the high road. In her own words, she said, "I'm excited for the girls that are on the team. I know it's the most competitive team in the world." That's class, folks. But more importantly, it's the mindset of a champion. While other players were competing in the Olympics, Clark was in the gym working on her game. She used that time to rest, recover, and most importantly, improve. Remember how taxing her transition from college to the WNBA was? This break gave her the chance to catch her breath and come back stronger. But it wasn't just about physical rest. Clark used this time to study the game, to figure out where she needed to improve. She watched film, analyzed her weaknesses, and came up with a plan to take her game to the next level. And boy, did it pay off. When Clark returned to practice, she didn't just show up, she showed out. Coach Christie Sides couldn't believe her eyes. Clark was hitting shots, making quick decisions, and playing with a fire that screamed, "I belong here." Now, you might be wondering, what about Clark's future Olympic dreams? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Coach Sides sees this setback as just a temporary bump in the road. In her words, she's young. She's gonna have so many opportunities in the future. Think about it. Clark is just getting started in her pro career. She's got years ahead of her to prove herself and earn that coveted spot on the Olympic team. And if her post-snub performance is anything to go by, she's well on her way. But here's the thing, this isn't just about Clark making the Olympic team someday. It's about how she responded to adversity. It's about taking a moment that could have defined her career in a negative way and flipping the script. Instead of letting the Olympic snub be a stumbling block, Clark used it as a stepping stone. This is the kind of resilience that separates good players from great ones. It's the difference between a flash in the pan and a lasting legacy. Clark didn't just bounce back, she bounced higher. You've seen Caitlin Clark's incredible comeback, but now you're probably wondering, what's the secret sauce? How did she go from struggling rookie to potential superstar during that Olympic break? Well, buckle up because we're about to spill the tea on Clark's transformation. First things first, let's talk about shot selection. Remember how Clark was struggling early on? She was falling back into her college habits, waiting for plays to develop instead of creating opportunities. It's like she was playing chess while everyone else was playing speed chess. But during that break, Clark had an epiphany. She realized she needed to be more aggressive, to make things happen instead of waiting for them to unfold. In her own words, Clark admitted, "I was just waiting too much for stuff to happen rather than making it happen." That's a big realization for a rookie, folks. It's the difference between being a passenger and taking the wheel. And boy, did Clark take the wheel. But it wasn't just about being more aggressive. Clark also had to learn to diversify her shot selection. See, in college, she could rely on her deadly three-point shot and close jumpers. But in the WNBA, those defenses had her number. They studied her tendencies. They knew her favorite spots. So Coach Sides pushed Clark to mix it up, to keep those defenders guessing. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Coach Sides introduced something called the 0.5 second rule for Clark. What's that, you ask? Well, it's all about making quicker decisions with the ball. In the WNBA, you can't afford to linger. That extra half second can be the difference between a clean shot and a turnover. Sides noticed that Clark had a habit of hanging around after passing the ball. It might not seem like a big deal, but in pro basketball, it's huge. It made it easier for defenses to read the Fever's offense. It's like giving the other team a cheat code to your playbook. Not good. So Clark had to rewire her brain. She had to learn to make decisions faster, to keep the ball moving, to create chaos for the defense instead of predictability. It's like going from playing a video game on easy mode to expert mode overnight, but Clark was up for the challenge. And the results? They speak for themselves. When Clark came back from that Olympic break, she wasn't just better, she was a whole new player. Coach Sides couldn't believe her eyes. Clark was hitting shots, making plays, and most importantly, she had her legs under her. That last part might not sound like much, but in basketball, it's everything. It means Clark wasn't just mentally prepared, she was physically ready to dominate. But here's the real kicker. Remember those turnover problems? The ones that had everyone questioning whether Clark could hack it in the pros? Well, they started to disappear. Clark went from coughing up the ball 5.6 times a game to becoming a much more efficient player. It's like she went from being a rookie driver stalling at every intersection to a Formula 1 racer taking perfect turns. All these changes, the aggressive mindset, the diverse shot selection, the quicker decision making, they all added up to create a new and improved Caitlin Clark. A Clark that wasn't just surviving in the WNBA, but thriving. A Clark that was ready to take on the best players in the world and hold her own. You've seen Caitlin Clark's incredible transformation, but there's one more piece to this puzzle that's about to blow your mind. It's not just about individual skill, it's about team chemistry. And let me tell you, the Indiana Fever have been cooking up something special. Let's rewind a bit. When Clark first joined the Fever, things weren't exactly smooth sailing. The team was struggling to find its rhythm. It was like watching a group of talented musicians all playing different songs. Sure, they had skills, but they just weren't in sync. Coach Christie Sides knew something had to change. She saw the potential in her team, but she also saw the disconnect. It was time to get creative. Sides didn't just focus on drills and plays, she went full-on team builder. We're talking trust falls, group activities, the whole 9 yards. Now, you might be thinking, what's the big deal about a few team building exercises? Well, let me tell you, it made all the difference. Suddenly, players who were struggling to connect on the court were laughing together off it. They were getting to know each other as people, not just as teammates. But Sides didn't stop there. She knew that for real chemistry to develop, it had to happen on the court too. So she started mixing things up during practice. Different lineups, unexpected drills, anything to get her players thinking on their feet and relying on each other. And you know what? It worked. The Fever started to look like a whole new team. Passes were crisper, defense was tighter, and most importantly, they were having fun out there. It was like watching a group of friends playing pickup basketball, except these friends happened to be some of the best players in the world. But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember Clark's early struggles, those high turnover rates and defensive lapses? Well, as the team chemistry improved, so did Clark's game. It's like the improved relationships with her teammates gave her a whole new level of confidence. Coach Sides noticed it too. She saw how Clark was starting to gel with her teammates, how she was making quicker decisions, how she was trusting her instincts more. Sides even pointed out that Clark now has more talent around her compared to her college days. And boy, does it show. Think about it. In college, Clark was often the best player on the court by a mile. She could dominate games single-handedly. But in the WNBA, it's a whole different ball game. Clark needed to learn how to play with and trust her equally talented teammates. And that's exactly what she's doing now. The results speak for themselves. Clark's turnovers are down, her assists are up, and she's playing with a newfound energy that's infectious. But it's not just about Clark. The entire Fever team is looking more cohesive, more dangerous. Remember those early defensive struggles, the ones where Sides had to remind her team that you can't at this level coach effort? Well, those days are long gone. Now, the Fever are playing like a unit, communicating on defense, rotating seamlessly, and making life hell for opposing teams. But here's the kicker. This improved team chemistry isn't just making the Fever more fun to watch. It's making them a real threat in the league. Suddenly, playoffs don't seem like such a distant dream. They're playing with the kind of confidence and cohesion that can upset even the top teams in the league. The Caitlin Clark's journey from struggling rookie to potential top 5 player is nothing short of remarkable. She's gone from turnover machine to game changer in just a few months. But it's not just about the stats. Clark's story is a masterclass in resilience and adaptability. She took every setback, from early struggles to that Olympic snub, and used it as fuel. Here's the thing, Clark's comeback isn't just changing her career, it's shaking up the entire WNBA. She's proving that with the right mindset, even the toughest challenges can be overcome. And that's got everyone wondering, if Clark can do this as a rookie, what's she gonna do next? This isn't just about basketball, it's about never giving up no matter what life throws at you. Clark's story might just be the inspiration other athletes need to turn their own setbacks into comebacks.